So what really makes a man? Or a woman a woman? I mean, is it just biology, or is there something else going on? Today we're going to dig into this really powerful idea that gender isn't something we're born with, but something society actually builds around us.
Yeah, this is the big question, right? Are the differences we see between men and women just, hardwired into our DNA? Or are they ideas we've learned, rules that we, as a society, have kind of made up over time? Put another way, is it all nature, or is there a whole lot more nurture at play than we might think?
All right, to really get into this, we first have to get two key terms straight, because people use them interchangeably all the time: sex and gender. They might sound like the same thing, but believe me, the difference between them is the key to this whole conversation. So, think of it like this. Sex is the biological hardware. It's about our chromosomes, our anatomy, the physical stuff. But gender, that's the social software. It's the set of rules, behaviors, and expectations that our culture decides to attach to being male or female.
The philosopher Simone de Beauvoir just nailed it with this quote. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. What she's getting at is that femininity, and hey, the same thing goes for masculinity, isn't something that's just inside you from day one. It's a role you're taught to play.
Okay, so if gender is built, then who are the builders? Well, the answer is all around us. It's our social institutions. Things like family, the workplace, the media that are constantly shaping our idea of gender, usually without us even noticing.
A super clear example of this is what we call the sexual division of labor. So our society tends to split up jobs along gender lines. And guess what? Women's work is almost always unpaid or seen as less valuable. But here's the really weird part. When a similar skill becomes a paid profession, it often flips. Cooking at home? That's women's work. But a professional chef in a fancy restaurant, that's a high-status, often male role.
And this whole idea of devaluing domestic work has had some serious real-world consequences. It is absolutely wild to think that it wasn't until 2010, just a few years ago, that a major ruling in India officially recognized the economic value of the work a homemaker does. For centuries, it was just invisible to the law.
So, where do we pick up all these rules in the first place? Well, it all starts at home. The family is basically our first classroom for gender. It's where we learn what's expected of boys and girls long before we ever step into an actual school.
And in a lot of traditional family structures, male authority gets cemented by three key things. First, there's virolocality, which is the idea that a wife has to move to her husband's home. Then patrilineal, where property and the family name are passed down through the sons. And finally, patriarchy itself, the whole system where men hold the power. You put those three together and you've got a pretty solid foundation for male dominance.
Now, within that system, marriage often gets held up as the #1 goal for a woman. The cultural message, a lot of the time, is that she should get ready for a life of sacrifice, where her own dreams and ambitions might have to take a backseat to her role as a wife and a mother.
So, how are all these unwritten rules actually enforced? I mean, who's the gender police? Well, one of the most powerful tools out there is the stereotype. Let's take a look at this stereotype trap and see how it works to keep everyone in their assigned boxes. I mean, just look at this list. The difference in what we expect is pretty stark, isn't it? Men are supposed to be brave, assertive, logical. Women, on the other hand, are supposed to be obedient, nurturing, and in need of protection. And you have to remember, these aren't just simple descriptions. They're social prescriptions. They're rules for how we're all supposed to act. And these rules have real-world consequences. They box people in, limiting opportunities for everybody, men and women. They create inequality in everything from the jobs we choose to the subjects we study. They can even cause something psychologists call stereotype threat. That's when the anxiety of confirming a negative stereotype about your group actually makes you perform worse. It's a vicious cycle.
So what's the biggest engine for spreading these stereotypes far and wide? You guessed it, the media. It's like a massive amplifier, blasting these gender roles into our living rooms through the movies, ads, and shows we watch every single day. Seriously, just think about it. In commercials, how often do you see women selling cleaning products or being used as sex objects while men are the ones making the big decisions? In movies, men get to be the heroes, the main characters, while women are often stuck in supporting roles as the wife or the sister. The underlying message is pretty clear. Women are often judged by how they look and men by what they do.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about a place that's supposed to be about breaking down barriers: the classroom. But here's the thing. Does our education system actually challenge these gender rules, or does it sometimes end up reinforcing them?
A lot of times, it starts with the books themselves. Go back and think about the textbooks you had as a kid. How many pictures showed moms in the kitchen while dads were off at the office? When you're a child, you don't see those as social constructs. You see them as simple facts about how the world is supposed to work.
And it's not just the curriculum. There can be a lot of unconscious bias right there in the classroom. Research has shown that teachers often call on boys more, letting them dominate the conversation. And those old, tired stereotypes, like the idea that girls just aren't as good at math, can create a vibe that really discourages girls from speaking up and showing what they can do. So all of this leads us to a really critical question. Is school truly the great equalizer we want it to be? Or does it sometimes just end up teaching the same old gender lessons that kids are already getting from the world around them?
Well, there are two big ways to look at it. One side argues that education is basically a mirror. It can't really fix gender inequality by itself because it's just reflecting the values of society as a whole. From this point of view, society has to change first. But the other side sees education as a tool for change, a really powerful force that can arm students with the critical thinking they need to actually challenge and change those social norms.
So that's the final question we want to leave you with. When it comes to gender, is education just a mirror, showing us the world as it is, or can it be a hammer, strong enough to smash those old structures and build something better? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.